Education in Canada. Education in Canada is for most part provided publicly and is funded and overseen by provincial, territorial, and local governments. Education is within provincial jurisdiction and the curriculum is seen by the province. Education in Canada is generally divided into primary education, followed by secondary education and post-secondary within the provinces under the Ministry of Education. There are district school boards administering the educational programs. Education is compulsory in every province and territory in Canada up to the age of 18 for Manitoba, New Brunswick, Nunavut, and Ontario, and up to the age of 16 for other jurisdictions, or as soon as a high school diploma has been achieved in some provinces. Early living exemptions can be granted under certain circumstances. At 14, Canada generally has 190 in cubic days in the year, officially starting from September to the end of June, the month except in Quebec when it is just before June 24, St. Jean Baptist Day. In British Columbian schools, the Ministry of Education sets the minimum number of instructional hours in a school year, while local school boards have the authority to determine the start and end of the school year, length of the school day, number of non-instructional days, etc. In order to meet the minimum number of instructional hours for that year, while the school year typically runs from the start of September to mid-end of June, there exists local variation throughout the country. The Program for International Student Assessment, coordinated by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, currently ranks the overall knowledge and skills of Canadian 15-year-old as the sixth best in the world. Canada is a well-performing OECD country in reading literacy, mathematics, and science, with the average student score 523.7 compared with the OECD average of 493 in 2015. In 2016, the country spent 6.0% of its GDP on all levels of education, roughly 1.0% point above the OECD average of 5% in 2017. 68% of Canadians agreed. 68% of Canadians aged 25 to 64 attained some form of post-secondary education, which is 56.8%, or 24% points above the OECD average of 44%. 57% of Canadians aged 25 to 64 had attained a college diploma or university degree, along with 11% of Canadians attained certificates, diplomas, and apprenticeships from vocational institutions. 61% of Canadians aged 25 to 34 attained some form of tertiary education, which is also one of the highest among OECD countries, ranking second behind South Korea. 31% of Canadians aged 25 to 64 earned a bachelor's degree or higher, which is comparable to the OECD average of 31%. Assessment agencies. The Canadian Education Statistics Council (CESC) works in collaboration with provincial and territorial departments that are responsible for education and training. On the Pan-Canadian Education Indicators Program, the CESC includes both CMEC and Statistics Canada. The CESC submits an annual report, Education Indicators in Canada and International Perspective, supports the comparison of educational system in Canada's provinces and territories with member countries. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development coordinates the program for international student assessment that is intended to evaluate education system OECD members and non-OECD members by measuring 15-year-old pupils' scholastic performance on mathematics, science, and reading. The federal government's responsibilities Canada-wide. The federal government's responsibilities in education are limited to the Royal Military College of Canada and funding the education of Indigenous people. All other matter of education in Canada falls under provincial responsibilities. As such, there is a lot of variation in the management of education from province to province. In 2016, 8.5% of men and 4.4% of women aged 25 to 34 had less than a secondary school diploma. That is estimately 340,000 young Canadians. In many places, publicly funded secondary schools courses are offered to the adult population. The ratio of secondary school graduates versus non-diploma holders is changing rapidly, partly due to changes in labor market that requires people to have a secondary school diploma and in many cases a university degree. Nonetheless, in 2010, 51% of Canadians had completed a tertiary education, the highest rate in the world. The majority of schools, 67%, are co-educational. Canada spends about 5.4% of its GDP on education. The country invests heavily in tertiary education, more than $20,000 per student. Recent reports suggest that from 2006, the tuition fees of Canada